The New World Order.
Those are the roots of trouble.
I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people.
And now, welcome to another episode of Down the Rabbit Hole. Here's your host from federaljack.com. It's Popeye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition. It's Thursday, June 5th, 2014. Tonight on DTRH, I am joined by a very special guest, somebody that I'm welcoming to the broadcast for the very first time. But I've actually read his articles to you on air before, given analysis of some of the things that he's discussed in some of his articles on air before. So he is not a stranger to the broadcast by any means. Anyway, I digress. Let me read you a little bit about tonight's guest. His name is Brandon Turbeville. He's an author. He's from South Carolina. He's got a bachelor's degree from Francis Marion University. He's the author of 6 books: Codex Alimentarius, The End of Health Freedom, 7 Real Conspiracies, 5 Cent Solutions, and Dispatches from a Dissident, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And The Road to Damascus, The Anglo-American Assault on Syria, which is something we're going to be getting into tonight. He's published over 300 articles on a wide variety of subjects, including health, economics, government corruption, and civil liberties. He's also got a podcast called Truth on the Tracks, and it's on every Monday night. It airs every Monday night live, and I'm sure you can pull the archives from the same place over at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over at ucy.tv. And he is just a plethora of information, ladies and gentlemen. Brandon is an awesome investigative journalist. He really does his research when he writes an article. He doesn't just look at a story and spew stuff from his opinion. So I urge you to check out his work. Anyway, without wasting any more time, I want to bring him to the air. Brandon, welcome to the broadcast.
Hey, Popeye. Thanks for having me on.
So, first and foremost, it is an honor to have you on the broadcast tonight, brother. Hell of a job you do out there. Thank you from myself and from the listeners for all the work that you do over the years, pumping out articles and the books you write and everything else, speaking truth to power. Thank you for everything you do, dude.
Well, it's an honor to be on the show, and thank you as well.
So let's hop right into it. Let's pick up with Syria first, because I know this is a hot button topic that we've been discussing as of late, and that's been going on. And ironically, the media isn't even paying attention to that or the Ukraine too much anymore. I guess it's not getting enough viewers, or the lies aren't getting out there enough. So what's going on with Syria? From what I understand, there was an election today, and Assad won the election.
Yeah, there was it was yesterday actually. Of course, as I told you before, you wouldn't know that there was really an election, a successful election by the mainstream media, because they prefer not to talk about the details of the election as it stands. The results, there were 3 candidates, unlike the United States, which generally only has 2. There were 3 candidates running in Syria, and Bashar al-Assad had won the vote with 88.7% of the population who voted. I think there was around a 73% turnout. So Assad, who's been accused of using chemical weapons against his own people, against indiscriminately firing on his own people and so forth, somehow those people voted him in again with 88% majority. So if he's such a horrible dictator, how did he get such large amounts of support? Now, there was Western response to this. Skull and Bones John Kerry gave a speech where he claimed that the elections were a farce. Of course, all evidence is that the elections were not a farce, that they were actually free and fair, as free as they can be, considering that the death squads who've been used to destabilize Syria have been in control of a large swath of the country out toward the east and some of the northeastern areas as well, but the larger cities and so forth had free and fair elections. Kerry gave a speech where he said, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. All the killing is still the same. The violence is still the same. Nothing has changed. Well, he didn't mention that the killing and the violence and the terror that he was talking about was as a result of people like him. John Kerry, and this goes back all the way to the Bush administration, but it's the United States, Britain, France, NATO, Anglo-Americans, Anglo-Europeans, whatever name you want to put on it, they are the ones responsible for the killings and the death in Syria, not Assad. It's the death squads that they funded from the very beginning to run rampant through the country and commit all types of horrific acts. They're responsible for that. But with the Assad victory, Syria erupted in celebration. I did an article recently where I've got a number of pictures from Damascus and Aleppo and some of the other larger cities in Syria, and you can see the massive party that took place after Assad's victory. It was quite a sight to see, and it's maybe one day America will have a reason to celebrate after an election, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case anytime soon. In fact, the celebrations in Syria were so strong that many of the Syrian people were firing gunshots in celebration into the air, and 3 people were actually injured, and Assad had to come out and calm them down and tell them to lay off of the gunfire before anybody else got hurt. So that's the situation in Syria. It's good news, but at the same time, there's a negative aspect too, because the idea initially, of course, was to overrun the Syrian government, to overthrow the Syrian government, and replace it with a weak puppet state, or at least a state that could not govern and resist the West. They didn't do that. They couldn't. Assad has outsmarted them. He had connections, close connections and alliances with Russia. But what they have been able to do is significantly weaken Syria in terms of its infrastructure and in terms of the living standards of the people now after 3 years of intense warfare. So Syria as a weakened state is what we're seeing now, and hopefully they'll be able to initiate. They have state banks there. They don't have privatized central banks. It's state-owned central banks. So they would have be in a prime position to be able to launch some kind of infrastructure rebuilding program and get back on their feet. And hopefully that they can do that. But of course, I don't think for any stretch of the imagination that the West is done with Syria yet.
Well, especially considering they have a state-run bank and not a bank that's owned by the Rothschilds and the rest of these scumbags that are connected to the Federal Reserve and this much larger agenda that they have. I think it's very telling how, again, this whole election is. I'm glad you brought this up. This is a really good point, and that's why I was glad you told me about this off air. I didn't even realize that there was elections in Syria today. We all get caught up doing our own thing, chasing our own stories, and you get there's so much going on. It's hard to focus on everything at once. So I didn't even know there was elections going on in Syria, and here you have, what'd you say, like 80% voted for him? So even
88,
if 88% of the country voted for him. That's let me guess, it's fixed elections. No, if it was fixed elections, it would be like it was in Iraq when 100% of the people voted for Saddam Hussein. But even if it was a fixed election, ours are fixed. Who are we to be like, we have to bring you fair elections via bombs and bullets? Really? Can we bring ourselves a fair election first?
Well, you know what? It's funny that they condemn the elections in Syria, which, again, all the evidence shows they were free and fair, but they don't criticize the election of Petro Poroshenko in Ukraine, where half of the country couldn't even vote, but because of the crackdown there and the lack of polls. There was no condemnation of that election because Poroshenko was a tool of the West. There's no condemnation of Israeli elections when, again, the vast majority of people, the non-Israeli Jews and the Palestinians and so forth can't vote over there. There's no condemnation of that, but there is in Syria. And in fact, there's no condemnation of the elections in Saudi Arabia, or should I say the non-elections, because Saudi Arabia doesn't have elections at all. They don't even have the pretense of it. They have a king. They have a royalty. Have a royal family there. So no condemnation of that. But Syria, however, is a different story. Syria.
Well, how many of those countries have Rothschild-controlled central banks in them?
I do believe all of them do, except for Syria.
Maybe that's a reason. Could that be one of the reasons? Because it's just not a controlled country yet, or, to the level that they want it. So, just saying. I mean, on top of money, and it's never just one thing. The control extends to economics, minerals, oil, everything.
Yeah, I think there's seldom just one reason for doing anything. The state-owned bank is of course one reason, but also just geopolitically, it's a stepping stone to Iran, which is itself a stepping stone to Russia, and the same with Ukraine. It's a stepping stone to the doorstep of Russia there with Ukraine. So rarely just one reason for doing anything. Yeah,
they wanted to start they came close to starting World War III, but I still think that that's their eventual goal. Everybody says, I don't get why they would want to start World War III, because the people that are really behind the scenes pushing for this and pushing our politicians and stuff to do the things they do are the people that are going to make money funding both sides. Just like they have in every other conflict.
They did that in the first two. Why wouldn't people think they would do that in the third? And I agree with you. I think they really are trying to provoke a third world war. I mean, if you look at the situation, the foreign policy of the administration, this one and the last one and the one before it, and you can go on back, but especially in recent years. If you take the coincidence theory, or the idea that these people are really working for the benefit of the American people and are doing the best they can, that just doesn't hold up, because they're doing things that are so absolutely stupid that even someone who just does simple research on geopolitics and foreign policy would know not to do. There are attempts to anger Russia and China that are absolutely foolish, and there's no reason for them other than to provoke some type of confrontation. These are people who are allegedly supposed to be our enemies, but we gave nuclear secrets to them years ago. So, why would you give your nuclear secrets and your military hardware technical abilities and so forth to these countries if you knew you were going to have to combat them later on? It's really a script, and one that I believe was written a long time ago that we're seeing being played out here.
It really is. I mean, you can't not see what they're doing. You can't look at this and be like, I don't know how anybody could look at this in 2014 and be like, well, it's all coincidence. Really? Come on. You don't see something going, even if you don't believe in some of the things like Albert Pike's letter to Manzini, where it lays out World War I, World War II, and World War III. And the first two happened exactly the way it was laid out in Pike's letter. And this was written after the Civil War and before World War II, or World War I. So, I mean, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to look at what's going on and see they have an ulterior motive that is not in our best interest. How is it in our best interest to be in Syria's backyard? How? Or the Ukraine? How? How is that in our best interest? Explain that to me. You can't. You know what I mean? It's lies. It's crap. There's ulterior motives.
Right, and again, people may not want to believe that the letter, for instance, between Pike and Mazzini was written by Pike, but somebody wrote it, and somebody had a very, very interesting. It must have had a crystal ball. I mean, I guess we just another coincidence, Popeye. We live in a world full of coincidences here. Maybe one day they'll work out in our favor. I'm still waiting on that, but we have people like Zbigniew Brzezinski who've written. At length about the geopolitical situation between Russia, the United States, and of course China and Japan as well. And he's got a book called The Grand Chessboard. I think it's U.S. Primacy and its Hegemonic Strategy or something. I can't remember the title, but the Grand Chessboard is the main title of the book. The Grand Chessboard: American Primacy and its Geostrategic Imperatives. There we go. And he lays out basically what is the geopolitical chessboard of the world between the United States, Europe, Russia, and China. And you see that he's got a roadmap written out in terms of how to provoke the Russians. He's got a situation in this book where he puts forth the idea that Russia would be broken up into three different segments, three different autonomous segments, sort of a confederacy, and then blended in, part of it blended into the European Union, and the other parts blended into Asian cooperations of sort of, of some type. And of course the Russian government would be decentralized and weakened, and NATO backed up right to its very borders, with Russia accepting missile defense shields and so forth. This is, of course, ludicrous because Russia would never accept these things. So basically, de facto, what he is pushing here is a deal that Russia would never accept, and thus a confrontation with Russia. He's written at length about this. And of course, to those of the listeners who don't know who Zbigniew Brzezinski is, he is the former national security advisor to Jimmy Carter and the founder of Al-Qaeda. You can go on YouTube and see Brzezinski giving a pep talk to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan in the late 1970s, telling them that this is their holy war to fight against the Russians. This is the architect of Al-Qaeda. So read that book, The Grand Chessboard, and you'll find he lays out an entire roadmap here for the confrontation with Russia.
He also helped create the Trilateral Commission.
Yes,
and his daughter is Mika Brzezinski, who is an MSNBC news quote presenter, if that's what you want to call what she says on air, news, right? It's a game, like that quote, "All the world's a stage." Yeah, it is really a huge stage. And what's Brzezinski now? A lot of people don't realize this, but he's one of Obama's advisors on foreign policy. Wonder what he's putting in his ear over there in the White House. What do you think, Brandon?
Well, I think he's putting in his ear exactly what we're seeing happen right now. I mean, you mentioned Mika Brzezinski, the television news presenter, right? I guess the brains didn't get passed down in that family, but the roadmap that we're seeing again is an expansion of NATO. The idea of Ukraine becoming a part of NATO, this is a major provocation to Russia. People may not understand what this means, but this is essentially the Anglo-European, Anglo-American army, the world army, the NATO, backing up right to the doorstep of Russia. They're not likely to accept this willingly, right? This is no sane country would, especially when you see the track record of NATO, and you also see the expansion of the European Union. You see exactly. Brzezinski's book was written in 1997, and you see exactly what he called for in that book coming true in Ukraine right now with the American foreign policy. And unfortunately, this is not going to bode well for anybody involved, particularly the Ukrainians, but the rest of the world as well. So if I could just expand on this just a little bit, some of the things that Brzezinski mentions in this book, some of the sort of carrot and stick motif for the European countries. He speaks about expanding Europe as a carrot to the Central European and the Eastern European countries. So it gives them something to work for to get the so-called benefits of the European Union. I imagine somebody could find benefits in the European Union in some manner. Again, I haven't seen any of them, but to use the European Union as a carrot for the Eastern Europeans and Central Europeans to have something to work toward and thus do the bidding of the West when it comes to policy toward Russia, but also the expansion of NATO that would give these countries the protection from Russia, which does have its own geopolitical and imperial objectives. Make no mistake about it. This is one of the problems when you try to present information, is that people tend to have a knee-jerk reaction. If they realize that one side is not working for their best interests, they tend to fly back like a rubber band and go to the other side. So if the West is acting as the aggressor in Ukraine, then suddenly Putin must be the second coming. This is not a wise move to be made. It's better to stay on your toes and be a little more sophisticated than that, because Putin himself has his own geopolitical desires, and maybe not Putin himself, but you get the idea, the oligarchy behind him. And Russia itself is an imperial power. So we're seeing sort of a power in the East and a power in the West, and all the little people below are the ones that get crushed at this colossal battle.
Well, see, that's the problem, and it's hard not to get caught up in that idea of one side versus the other. It's always I always talk about the faux illusion of choice that we're given, where it's choice A or choice B, and here you have it again. Either you're with America and you're a patriotic American, or you're a commie bastard because you're on board with Russia. And then people look past that and they go, but Russia is they're telling the truth about a lot of stuff, and our country's lying. And then people still play into that. It's side A versus side B. They don't realize the bigger picture of what's going on, above that, the people controlling all of them. And then if you look below that, you see the regular everyday people that are getting stepped on by these two political mega powers, because they're the ones that the citizens of Ukraine, the citizens of Syria, the citizens of any country that these foreign policies colliding are causing to actually have literally ground battles on the ground where people are dying and getting shot and stabbed and blown up. Those are the people that suffer. I don't see any of these politicians in Washington suffering. I don't really see any politicians in Moscow suffering, right? And I'm not picking on either side, I'm being honest. I see a lot of political posturing on both sides, a lot of chest pumping, pigeon chesting, pushing that thing out there, trying to look all tough. But I see the people that are dying and bleeding are the civilians, the ones that aren't, going up and grandstanding for political purposes. I see innocent little kids getting shot and blown up. I don't see them getting a voice. So, I mean, this whole thing of violence and war to solve all of our political problems to begin with is kind of archaic, if you ask me. I mean, it's insane. And the reason why this stuff perpetuates is because the general public needs to bring themselves up to a higher level. That way, this kind of crap can't happen. Because if the general public was at a higher level, you wouldn't have soldiers that were willing to fight and die in wars for lies. It's that simple. If everybody realized that they didn't benefit at all from fighting and dying, this stuff would end tomorrow.
And, that's exactly what Goebbels said years ago when he talked about, arousing the average person to go to war. He says, of course, some poor farmer doesn't want to go to war. What does some poor Slav on a farm gain by going off to shoot someone else? Nothing. And then he talks about how you arouse these people, arouse the patriotism. You come up with some external threat, and you denounce the people who question that as unpatriotic, and there you've got your war. In fact, speaking of the chest pumping that we see going on all across the mainstream media outlets in the Washington D.C., you have politicians. You give the Republicans credit; at least they're consistent, right? The Democrats are only for war when there's a Democratic president. The Republicans are always for war all the time, everywhere, anywhere. But you kind of expect the subsets of those, the Libertarians and the Greens, to be a little more sophisticated, and I say a little more.
I agree. I'm going to cut us off. I'm going to have you finish your point on the other side. I think I know where you're going with this, but I'm going to have you reiterate it from the beginning, about 30 seconds, so everybody gets full context. Stay tuned. 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere. You can check Brandon's work out over at activistpost.com and a bunch of other places. I'll have them plug when we get back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Brandon, before we get into it, I'm going to have you reiterate your point that you were getting into when we got cut off by the break. But I want you to plug all your stuff really quick. I want you to take like 30 seconds, minute, whatever it takes. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever websites people can read your stuff on, and anything else, your radio show, plug away. Yeah,
sure. You can catch my work at Activist Post and the Anti-Media. That's activistpost.com and the antimedia.org. And I have a weekly radio show on UCY.TV called Truth on the Tracks. And you can catch, all of my work. I put all of my work up on BrandonTurbeville.com. I repost all the articles, all the videos, all of the interviews that I do. And there's also a bookstore on that website where you can find all of my books there. So BrandonTurbeville.com is the place to go if you're interested in my work.
Awesome. So now, getting back to the discussion that we were having before the break snuck up on us, you were making a point, and I had to cut you off. So go ahead and rewind back to the beginning of it, just in case, for full context for people, so they have a full idea, of what you mean. And the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, we were talking about the situation in Ukraine and all of the chest pumping and the pro-war propaganda that's been coming out of Washington and the mainstream media. Of course, everybody's always ready to fight and die to the last American, and this idiocy. You expect this from the Republican crowd. Again, I said to begin with, Republicans are at least consistent, because the Democrats, the left-wingers, the liberals, are only pro-war when there is a Democratic president. The Republicans are pro-war when there's a Democratic president, a Republican president, or when there's not even a conflict on the field. Right? The right-wingers are always for war, anytime, anywhere, any place. It's never enough. But you kind of hope for a little more sophistication with people who consider themselves neither one of those parties, right? Whether neither conservative nor liberal. I'm, a little something different is what these people will say. Whether they're libertarians or Greens or whatever else, any number of subsets there. But what I saw after the initial Ukraine situation, the annexation of the Crimea by Russia, I saw a lot of chest pumping coming from these quarters too. I mean, I saw a lot of people who consider themselves libertarians calling for increased action in Ukraine, and I saw them saying that Obama is making us look weak. And I would ask, what the hell do you want him to do? The answer would to have not been to initiate this situation to begin with, this Euromaidan color revolution to begin with. The West initiated this. There's no doubt that there is no debate that the West initiated this destabilization. So what is the answer here? For instance, Rand Paul actually called for opening up fracking here in the United States and more drilling in the United States to send the oil and the gas to Ukraine to support the Ukrainians against Russia. This is absolutely ridiculous, right? And I think
because he's a neocon. And so is Rubio, and so is that other one from Texas that just won the straw poll, Ted Cruz. They're all controlled by the neocons. I mean, Rubio was on TV 2-3 weeks ago talking about, I have a plan for New American Century. I spit my coffee out all over my desk when I saw it. I was watching the video. Somebody was like, "Hey, dude, you need to see this. Check out what Rubio said." And I had seen that he had brought up, I think it was at CPAC a couple of days earlier, he had said the same thing. So there was this interview on MSNBC, and he's talking, and he's like, "My plan for a New American Century," and he repeated the term New American Century. Why does that ring a bell, ladies and gentlemen? As I've said before, the Project for a New American Century. The think tank that wrote up that little piece of paper called Rebuilding America's Defenses, the one where they said we needed a new Pearl Harbor, and then we had one a year later with the very same people that were in office now that wrote the thing. But that's just a coincidence, right? I mean, there couldn't be a conspiracy there, Brandon, right?
No, just another coincidence in a long string of coincidences. But I'm glad you recognize that this Rand Paul is a neocon, because unfortunately a lot of my friends who consider themselves libertarians do not recognize that he is a neocon, and they're fooled by this. I constantly see reports about what Rand Paul is saying or what Rand Paul does, and why do you care? Why do you care what Rand Paul says? He's not your friend. I mean, this guy wants to drone bomb American citizens on American soil without trial or jury. So if anybody doubts that, they can look it up. Not long after his big filibuster in the Senate over Brennan and his appointment to his post, Rand Paul, when there was the Chris Dorner situation, the guy who was killing cops in Los Angeles, or at least allegedly killing cops in Los Angeles, Rand Paul was asked about the use of drones to surveil or subdue Chris Dorner, and Rand Paul said he didn't care if they used a police officer or a drone to kill Chris Dorner on American soil. And so that's the duplicity, I guess is the right word, of Rand Paul. So people need to wise up a little bit about this. And
that apple fell far from the tree, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, this guy, and he's probably going to run for president. I mean, there's not really any probability to it. It's almost guaranteed that he's going to run for president. It's going to
either be Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, or Marco Rubio, Rand Paul. And, you can swap whoever runs for president or vice president. But either way, it's like total neocon controlled. The neoconservatives got exposed after 9/11. They had a lot of people focusing the light on them. The cockroaches started to scatter. So instead of being their typical neocon selves, look, these people, I know they do stupid things, and a lot of times the people that are involved, like politicians, are stupid, but the people behind the scenes of this are not. Okay, they think way further into the future than most people do. Okay, they know how to play this game, and they saw the Tea Party. They saw the rise of like the End the Fed movement, and they saw all these people coming out and starting to learn about 9/11 and the Federal Reserve, and it kind of got hijacked because it was forming into this natural grassroots like Tea Party thing, and that got hijacked. And now what they call the Tea Party is really, I would say, half to three-quarters of the people involved in that. And I don't mean the grassroots people. I mean like the politician level wise or like higher up wise. They're all neocons, or they're being slowly brainwashed into it. And it's going to be, you're patriotic. Look, your freedom. That's the same crap they sold us after 9/11. Remember? It's the same garbage, except it's not as overt this time. They realized they had to tone it back a bit. So they use a little bit of libertarian jargon once in a while to get you to believe that they're about freedom. They're not. It's the same psychopaths that were willing to kill over 3,000 people in New York City and in Washington, and then turn around and use that as justification to kill millions more around the world. Remember that. Remember, like one of the family members said during the 9/11 Truth Commission hearings, your government funded and trained Al-Qaeda. I'll say it again. Your government funded and trained Al-Qaeda. One more time. Your government, the one that's in power now, they're the same people that were in charge of the Bush Muppet and the Muppet before him, Clinton, and then Big Bush Muppet, okay, and Muppet Reagan. Let's just all be honest, okay? Stop. Oh, it's the Bush administration. No, it's the Obama administration. That's what they want you to do. That way you're not paying attention. It's like my T-shirts. It's got Uncle Jack. That's the modified Uncle Sam with the Illuminati eye in his forehead. You've all seen it. He's got the two puppets. One's a Republican. The other one's a Democrat. Get it? They're playing everybody. Stop it. Stop it. Your government, the system, the people that control the system, not the people in it, some people in it, but the people that control the system, including our politicians, funded and trained Al-Qaeda. Just remember that. And these same NeoCon dirtbags are now taking over the faux right, I call it, Brandon. That's what I like to call it, is the faux conservative movement, because honestly, people need to stop. We keep separating ourselves on this level of I'm a liberal or I'm a conservative, I'm this, I'm that. Well, why do we have to look at things in that light? Why can't we just look at things in like I'm for common sense and being cool to my fellow human beings? Is that a political stance? Can I want to make that a political party with me? You and I can run for president. How about that?
Well, I like it. And anytime somebody starts throwing themselves into a camp and saying, I'm a this or I'm a that, then to me, you're telling me you took out your brain at some point and handed it to someone else and said, here, I don't need this anymore. You can do whatever you want with it. And that's why I don't subscribe to any of those ideologies, and certainly not the parties. But you're exactly right. You see a number of people coming up on the right and the left who are just mainly piggybacking off of the anger that people feel at the turn of every election cycle. You see, most people don't vote other people in or vote presidents in or senators in. They just vote the old ones out because they're so disgusted with it. But nothing ever really changes. Except for the fact that it gets worse. So you're going to get on the right, you're going to get people like Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and maybe Ben Sass out of Nebraska. He's somebody to watch in 2016. You're going to get these neocons on that side of the fence, and on the left, you're going to get Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, and of course, don't forget Jeb Bush, of course, on the right. But you'll also get Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, and of course, to those on the left, when you throw up one of these Republicans, particularly someone like Jeb Bush, then all common sense goes out the window, right? They're going to be terrified, so they're going to throw their weight behind whatever Democrats put up, and vice versa for the right, because that's the way people have been trained. You throw Hillary Clinton up, and anybody who's even slightly conservative is going to see that and panic and go vote for the Republican. This happens every single presidential term, and sometimes you think that people are going to learn after making this many mistakes, but they don't ever learn. They continue to do it year after year and vote for the what they see as the lesser of two evils. But of course, they're still voting for evil, and they still get it year after year. So,
unfortunately, that's what allows us to be controlled. And again, I see I'm glad that you see this, because you're right. There's a lot of people in this. And I hate the M word, the word movement. Blah, I just hate that word. But there's a lot of people in this thing, whatever it is we do, right? that are intelligent, but then when it comes to people like Rand Paul, they're like, oh, he's awesome. And it's like, oh, guys, you're still getting bogged down in this lower level of thinking, and you're getting dragged back into the same he'll fix things. None of those politicians are going to fix things. I mean, but let's just be honest. If voting actually changed anything, it would have been completely illegal a very long time ago, right? It would have been like a felony to vote if it actually changed anything. On a local level, it does. Local elections still work. Local issues, and that's where the fight is a lot too. Because if you can get the local, like local voting on bigger issues to block things, which has happened, that's good too. But as far as like presidential elections, that they're selected. I mean, the options they give you is choice A or choice B, and both suck, and they're both controlled by the same people. So it's not really a choice; it's a selection, not an election. And these Congress critters, I mean, there has to be term limits. Some of these people have been in Congress, dude, for 30 years. How do you expect these people to have any type of non-conflict of interest with making money or insider trading? You can't. And it's okay for them to insider trade and benefit from that. So they can make millions and millions of dollars and be completely disconnected from the rest of the world. Look at Pelosi. She used to use the Air Force when she was Speaker of the House like her personal limo service to fly all over the country. Packing planes with food and all sorts of stuff, drinks, alcohol for her staff and her family or whoever else was flying with her. I mean, how out of control and out of touch can you be that you'll spend, $30,000, $40,000 on one flight? One flight. You know what I mean? And there's people that could use that and survive off of $40,000 for an entire year. They could pay their rent, get food, feed their kids and stuff. I mean, I know people that could survive off of that, for a year. And here they spend it in a 3-hour plane ride. And these people are still voted in. What baffles me is like this stuff comes out and like people see it, and yet there's still a large portion of people in their area that vote them in. And I know there's got to be election fraud going on, because there's just sometimes like I know that people are kind of dumbed down, but really is it? Do you think it's possible they could be fixing any of these elections to get some of these scumbags back in office over and over and over again? Thoughts?
Well, of course they are. I mean, we've got the Diebold machines that are going up on polling stations all across the country that assured that there aren't going to be any legitimate candidates who win. Generally third-party candidates or something. These things are already in the bag. These things can be. They claim, of course, that they're hack-proof, but obviously they're not. We've seen numerous occasions, we especially in Ohio, but all throughout the country, of election fraud like that. Now, when you talk about people being out of touch, I don't think even a lot of people who listen to my show or yours or read my articles and so forth really understand what a different planet some of these people live on. It's not just spending money on flights and stuff. It's just you're looked at as a different species. I mean, when George Bush, I think it was George Bush Sr., who was running for president, and he was going to do his little PR photo op going to the supermarket, and he went through the supermarket line, and he didn't even know what a barcode scanner was. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know how to use it. Because why would he? Because he's not in the public arena. He doesn't go do shopping at the supermarket. He doesn't have to take his car to be repaired. He doesn't drive his own car. This is an entirely different planet, and they look at us as a different species, I won't say a subhuman, but a subspecies.
No, I would say we're subhuman to them. That's about right, because they actually, the occultists, the dark occultists, they actually call the military police their pets, and they call us the dead. They call them their dogs or their pets, and they call us the dead, meaning we're like the walking, like all these zombie movies that come out. I have a different understanding of a lot of the reason why they constantly portray the mass, 98% of the population in these movies as walking dead zombies. And you see this overt amount of them coming out in the past 20 years. There's multiple reasons, but
because that's what they are.
Well, yeah, because that's what they think of us, dude. And that's literally the opinion that these elitist pricks have of us. They look at the general public like we're dead. And it's because we have this disconnect from our true selves. And they know that because they're responsible for, that. They're not just the people that are alive now, but the people that came before them, this work of ages that they've been doing.
Yeah, and you got Henry Kissinger. He refers to the military as the dumb, stupid animals to be used for foreign policy. You go back even further. It's not just a recent phenomenon of people who've accumulated wealth in recent years. I mean, you go back to Plato, and Plato refers to the average person as the its. So it refers to people like you and me, right? We're the its. We don't count for anything. We're just property. We're just cattle, basically. And
by the way, they quote him a lot. They love Plato.
Yeah, that's a common theme. And Plato talked a lot about the things that affect us daily, right? Even when you talk about the culture industry, Plato had talked about the culture industry a long, long time ago in his own writings, where he talked about musicians should be licensed because they could hold sway over the average person, and they could change a person's emotions, and they could cause the public to be, at ease, or they could cause them to be angry and discontent, and that for that reason he thought the musicians should be licensed and only approved by the oligarchy. So this is this work that Plato wrote about is still in effect today. And as you said, they love Plato. They love that work, and it actually goes back further than Plato, but those are some of the earliest writings that we have. We can see that plan laid out. So it's not something new by any stretch of the imagination.
No, the way that they look at us, the way that they actually think about us, is very old, and that's why I say we need to shake that off. And I always try to point this out when I talk about racism and the division and stuff. That's not natural for us to think like that about each other. That's the way they think about us, and they're instilling their thoughts into us via the media and via all their brainwashing. And because they have been set up like these superheroes and like these people to look up to, when people see them talking or acting a certain way, then they're going to emulate that. And we're doing that to ourselves. We divide ourselves. Oh, God, he's got long hair, or he's got short hair, or she's got short hair, she's got long hair, she's blonde, she's got brown eyes, she's got brown hair. You know what I mean? She's short, she's tall, she's skinny, she's fat. He's tall, he's short, he's skinny, he's fat. He's black, he's white. She's black, she's white. Latino, Asian, gay, straight, Christian, Muslim, Jewish. I mean, could we pick any more divisions to section ourselves off from each other? We're all human. How about that? How about we all breathe air? We all need blood. We all need to eat. Most of us would like to leave something behind in the form of a legacy, children, or whatever. Most people want to do good and want to love other human beings. Most people want to, make the world a better place. Wow, suddenly we all have a lot in common. We keep allowing ourselves to be divided because we allow ourselves to think the way they do. Because we're being programmed. We're like computers. You put bad code in, you're going to get a bad result. And that's what's going on. The coding that is coming into us right now is horrible. And we need to change that because they're not going to. So the general public needs to just shut that flow off and realize that we can produce that ourselves. We don't need them. We don't. None of you need them at all. None of you out there need them. I think Brandon would agree with me, right?
Yeah, they're what's holding us back, and as you said, that's the biggest problem, is that we buy into what they have pushed out to us, even in terms of our own powerlessness, right? You hear it with people every day, well, what can I do? I'm just one person, or nothing's ever going to change. Well, that's because they've told us that, and we bought into it, and as you said, they put these people up in powerful positions that we're supposed to look up to. Not just people in authority, but celebrities and so forth. That's why that's why they call them stars. It's because you follow the stars. If you want to get to from one point to another and you don't know where you're at, you follow the stars. and they give us the stars to follow. And all of this, the culture industry, the biggest weapon used against humanity is not a nuclear bomb, it's not a gun, it is a television. And that is the biggest weapon that's used against the average person today, because it turns them against each other, it turns them against themselves. They break each generation further and further from the previous generation. They have destroyed the family successfully with this. And they are, as you can see in the media now, the propaganda push against anti-vaccination people, and I'm one of them. I don't vaccinate either. Against people who support the Second Amendment, the propaganda push that's coming out with the shootings and so forth, but also in the television programs where people who don't vaccinate have children who get sick and die, and it's always because of the person who didn't vaccinate, or someone's a conspiracy theorist who believes in chemtrails or that fluoride is a poison toxin. Those are the people who launch terrorist attacks against the government, and it's always the cop shows and so forth. They have to come out and use deadly force in order to protect the average American. And you can't tell the good guys from the bad guys and so forth. And all of the really self-destructive issues that they push through the television, it's because we watch that uncritically. It gets downloaded into us, and we act it out in real life, and we can see the fruits of that. And just look at the way society's changed in just the last 10 years, and you look at the way society's changed ever since the advent of the television and mass marketing. When I was talking earlier about the culture industry and Plato and talking about how musicians had to be licensed, even the musical, the music industry that's been put out, and the different types of music that's been put out, that's been upgraded with each generation to indoctrinate us with certain culture. I don't know how to label this, but to indoctrinate us with certain ideas that the elite want us to have. Because if everyone was always the same, then, for instance, Beethoven would make someone of my generation, extremely excited. They'd be blasting Beethoven in their cars as they drove up and down the street. But it's not, because every generation has to have a form of music that's offensive to the previous generation. It gets more and more base, and that's not by accident, and that's not organic either. The people have always had their own cultures and their own types of music and so forth. Yeah, well,
that's why they actually call it. Like, most entertainers actually don't like to be called entertainers or stars. Or they like to be called, at least the ones that understand what they're doing, they like to call themselves culture creators. There's a reason for that. I want to pause this right there because the top of the hour break's coming up, Brandon, but when we come back on the other side, I want to pick up right here because this is a muy importante point. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. Check Brandon out. I'll have him plug his stuff again on the other side. Get his books, read his articles, and stay tuned for him. An hour 2. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with hour number 2 here on tonight's live edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I am your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. It is June 5th, 2014. Hanging out with me tonight on this edition of DTRH is Brandon Turbeville. And Brandon, before we get into it, because I know we're going to go deep, we're on the same page. It's good, by the way. It's refreshing to have somebody that you can have these conversations with, this deep stuff. Not every guest you can. I mean, most people are actually on the same page, but some just don't want to talk about it on air. And it's nice to be able to have somebody that's on the same page and sees things and understands what's going on, because I think having these conversations on air is important for the listeners to hear, because then perhaps it might spawn a thought in their head later on, because after all, that's the whole point of doing this. But before we get into that deep stuff, go ahead and plug all of your stuff again. Where can the listeners hear your podcast, follow you Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, anything else, websites? Go ahead and plug your books too.
Yeah, they can hear the radio show over at ucy.tv. It's called Truth on the Tracks, and it's every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and also on Friday nights it's rebroadcast at 9 p.m. as well, Eastern Standard. You can also find my work at Activist Post and the Anti-Media, which is activistpost.com and the antimedia.org. And if you're looking for my work specifically, you can find that at BrandonTurbeville.com, and I repost all of the articles, all of the archive versions of my show, all of the interviews I do, all of the updates and so forth on that webpage. So go check that out on a regular basis. And the books, they're available on BrandonTurbeville.com as well. Just click on the books tab, and it'll bring you to the bookstore. And my most recent book is the Road to Damascus, the Anglo-American Assault on Syria, which is a book that pretty much chronicles the entire Syrian destabilization effort up to a point. And if you don't understand what's going on in Syria, then I'd recommend that you get the book. It's about 500 pages or so, and it really details everything you need to know to understand the background behind that. I've also got a book called 7 Real Conspiracies, which is a very short book. It's only around 70 pages. It's got 7 conspiracies that people often consider conspiracy theories, but are easily documented as truth, whether it's fluoride, whether it's the vaccine dangers and so forth, the depopulation agenda, chemtrails. I've got 9/11 in there, and each chapter is only about 10 pages apiece, and it's written very simplistic and very short for anybody. It's really for people who are just coming into this information and maybe aren't on the the PhD level reading scale. Then this is kind of an intro book to them. And then obviously I've got the Codex Alimentarius, the End of Health Freedom book, which is detailing what Codex Alimentarius is and what it does and the ramifications that it has for natural health in the United States and the rest of the world. So go check those out at BrandonTurbeville.com.
Awesome. So let's get right back into it, because we were going deep down the rabbit hole, as it were. And this is important stuff, and it's not often I get to have a conversation about this stuff with someone as well-versed in the subject and intelligent as yourself. So I'm kind of excited to be able to chat with you about this. Cultured creation. We're talking about music and how it affects people. Wasn't it Socrates that I think was the one that said, beware of the music you listen to, or something like that? Or be careful of the music you listen to, because it could make you, or if you listen to the wrong music, it can make you the wrong type of person, something to that effect. And they understood way back, thousands of years ago, how music could influence somebody's emotions and the way they think. I mean, how many times have the listeners out there, 1, 2, 3, 4 of you, most of you are old enough to remember the 80s, right? Or the 90s, when they used to have the call-in radio shows. You'd be able to call in and send love songs to the girl you liked on air dedications, or you'd make a mixtape, right? Why do you think you did that? Why do you think you did that? Because you were trying to let her hear the love song. I want her to feel my love. It makes me feel this emotion when I listen to the music, right? Right? You realize that the emotions that you felt, although they were very real emotions, were manipulated. That's what culture creation is. Look what they've done with like pop culture and Justin Bieber and all that garbage. People go, I don't understand these kids and these girls, they like Justin Bieber and, blah, blah, blah. When I was a kid, music was blah, 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 blah. And what did you say, Brandon, before? The whole point of this is to bring it even more base level than what it was before. That's why when people compare like Justin Bieber lyrics to something from 20 years ago, any other band from 20 years ago, song came out 20, 30 years ago, you see the memes on Facebook all the time. People go, I don't get it. Or they compare maybe like a Beyonce song or something, the same thing. And their song is like this one Justin Bieber song. I saw the meme. It was just the word baby repeated over and over and over again. And then they had a song from Queen, which was, it was at least more in-depth and thought-provoking, right? Whether or not you like Queen or not. And it was comparing the two. And people go and people say, God, look how stupid they've made music. It just doesn't make sense. Well, if you understand that it's the gradual dumbing down, then yes, they, like you said before, they have to bring it down each time that they bring out this new genre of music, whatever, like Beethoven wouldn't get you all fired up, but it did, a couple hundred years ago. People were like, what? It's Beethoven. You know what I mean? People would be rocking out. Well, now you have rock and roll and, I'm aging myself. They don't have rock and roll anymore or heavy metal. Now, I mean, it still exists, but now the in thing is pop music. I got nauseous. Sorry, but it's the same thing. It's like this gradual dumbing down. At least when I was a kid, music still had, like, songs had lyrics and they meant things. Like, there was at least a meaning to the song, whether or not your emotions were being manipulated due to the beats and the way the singer's voice was dragged out or whatever, or manipulated via whatever they were doing. It's still, like, today it's all auto-tuned, and it's, so anybody could sing even if they don't have any talent, and it's just the most base, dumbed down, retarded garbage you could find. And it's exactly like what you said. They have to drop it down to, like, a lower level each time, and you can see it, and that's done to help manipulate the population. I mean, what do you think when you see, like, 35-year-old moms going crazy for Justin Bieber? Doesn't it make you a little, like, angry? It doesn't even sicken me, because I understand, like, some people, oh, that's gross. No, I understand they're brainwashed. Unfortunately, their mind is at that level, intellectually, that they're able to get, taken over like that. But I mean, I see it. What do you think about culture creation?
Yeah, well, it is disgusting. One day I was, not too long ago, I was in the car, and I had the radio on, and a rap song came on, and somehow I managed, it stopped at the station for a second, and before I turned it, it was so ridiculous that I thought that it was a parody. I thought it was a comedy job, that they were going to make fun of some corporation jingle or just making fun of rap in general. And I held the station there, and I waited for the punchline. And I waited, and finally it dawned on me that this isn't a parody, this is the real thing. And then it occurred to me that somewhere, probably within a 50-mile radius, some idiot probably has this blasted up as high as it'll go and is really rocking out to this song, and it really touches them in some way. And this is how stupid, and I'm not just saying that in terms of rhetoric, it's really gotten stupid in terms of the level of intelligence that has to go into this so-called art. And I'm not picking on rap. The pop music is just as bad. You mentioned the stupid Bieber song, where it just repeats "baby" over and over. But that's, when you hear older people, and they don't even have to be very old anymore. It could just be a difference of 5-6 years, and they suddenly can't relate to the new music. When people say, "I just don't understand these kids anymore," well, that's the whole point of it. It's meant to keep you from understanding the kids anymore. Before the break, I was talking about how, I mentioned Beethoven and I mentioned other cultures, but you look at, take for instance, a lot of the ancient British and Irish cultures and Celtic cultures and so forth that had these songs that would tell very long stories, and they would convey emotions about revolution or anger or whatever, and they traveled from Britain and Ireland, and they traveled the Atlantic Ocean, and they ended up here, and they traveled all the way down the Appalachian Trail, and they always remained the same with a few tweaks here and there. Maybe a few of the words would change just from being passed down orally, but they always remained the same, and then something changed abruptly, early 1900s, right? We started getting jazz and bebop, and then we got other pop music songs and so forth, and then we got rock and roll. And then it moved on, psychedelic music and glam and metal, and now to what it is today. Why did it change so abruptly? Why did these songs remain the same for hundreds of years and then suddenly change abruptly in the early 1900s? It's because we had a culture industry. The culture was being standardized, and music, of course, is only one part of it. Television came later. That was a part of it. The radio was always a part of it. That was the first steps, is when they had radio programs at a certain time every night, and they had cliffhangers, and so you could listen to the story, and you'd want to find out what happens next. And eventually, people started changing their behavior and changing their schedule so they could go home and listen to their shows on the radio. And eventually, people were altering their lives based on the radio program that was being broadcast. And that, of course, moved on to the television, and it's gotten even worse now. But even books, I kind of cringe sometimes when I hear people who are trying to be genuinely helpful and say, cut off the TV and read a book for a change. Well, yeah, I suppose that's better. It is better. But, it's just because you're reading a book doesn't mean you're doing yourself any favor. It depends on what you're reading. This is why the elite never really cared about the printing press, because people tend to forget. You read older books, older poetry and so forth, and people think that that this was written for the people. Maybe one of the people wrote these stories. Well, the overwhelming majority of people couldn't read at all, and by the time they were able to read, they could generally only read well enough to learn basic instructions. And those that could read well were given trivia. They were given romance novels and basically pop novels and so forth that meant nothing, and that downloaded them with the same thing that the television downloads them with now on a slower scale. So, and of course, reading the newspapers as well, getting their daily dose of propaganda and that. So the culture industry is wide-reaching, and it's not just here in the United States, of course, or even in Europe. It's reached out all across the world now.
You know what really weirds me out is when you see like this big deal over American-made movies in other countries. Like,
yeah, they're awful.
Yeah, but like they suck here. Like, we think these movies suck that are being made now here in the United States. Okay, like I don't know why they're exporting this garbage. Well, I know why, but you know what I mean. Like somebody that doesn't understand would go, I don't know why they're putting this crap out in other countries. But it's amazing how these other countries, like, it's just weird because you don't see other countries' movies coming here getting big fanfare. You might see an international film festival or something, or maybe there's like a little art house movie theater that plays international films or something in your local area. But when was the last time you saw a red carpet event for an entirely French-made film? I don't recall. Just for the film, not for a like I said, not like a film festival. Not like Tribeca or any of that stuff. None of these film festivals. I mean, like a red carpet event specifically for a foreign film that has an opening here in the United States. You never see that, ever. But yet, you see our crap being exported outward to other countries. And it's not really, well, that's the American way. No, it's not that. And first of all, the United States has been hijacked by these evil people anyway, okay? So they're just using this like a vehicle. But it's like they're exporting their method of propaganda and controlling the masses. And Europe already had its own version, but and they take it and they modify it to however they have to for their people, you know what I mean? But still, it's the same thing. You see this, the general populace just being completely dumbed down. I mean, there's not any level of thinking. And I know people could say, well, you just sound like an old square Popeye. No, I'm not an old square. I still listen to heavy metal music. I even like some modern stuff like dubstep. And I like old school rap, like real rap. See, the original rap from 20 years ago started, and if you listen to it, there was that. Why do you think they killed Tupac? Seriously, why do you think they killed him? You should listen to some of the stuff that he rapped about. He rapped about treating women with respect and not calling them bitches or hoes, even though he was kind of a thug. Well, not kind of. He was a thug. But even though he was a thug, he talked about treating women with respect. He wrote a song called, where he sung to his mother. He talked about how the Illuminati controlled things. Openly talked about how fake Jay-Z was, and Jay-Z was controlled by the powers that shouldn't be. All I'll say is random drive-by shootings. For a random drive-by shooting, Suge Knight didn't get hit. And he's big. And Tupac was like next to each other, they looked like the number 10. And Suge would have been the 0. okay? And somehow all the bullets hit their mark where they were supposed to go. Or maybe, I think Suge maybe got hit in the leg or something. If he got hit, I can't remember if he got hit, but I know it wasn't, if he got hit, it was like in the leg and it wasn't mortal. And yet, he's dead. So, like, a lot of that original old school stuff still had some flavor to it, but just like anything else, anything that comes up and might actually speak some truth to power quickly gets hijacked. The only stuff that doesn't is the underground stuff, that's out now. And then as soon as, if it gets picked up and it's popular, a lot of times those artists will get approached by, these bigger record companies, and they'll try to cut them a deal. And a lot of times, once they cut you a deal, that's it. Once they sign the contract, a lot of times people don't realize that that's it, and then they can twist the message or shut it down completely. If it goes against what they want, which is usually what happens. The culture creation business is, it's not something you can learn about in a 20-minute segment either. I mean, people need to go. One of the people I would recommend people listen to, the listeners, I would recommend you go listen to Alan Watt. I'm working on getting him on, but you second that, right? Alan's a great resource of information if you want to learn about this. What do you think, Brandon? Alan Watt?
Yeah, Alan Watt. I'd just say go to his website, cuttingthroughthematrix.com, and he's got it set up where you can go and listen to the archives, but you can get it on iTunes and burn it down to CD, and just go back to especially the older talks that he did, and that is a treasure trove of information. Absolutely.
And he knows what he's talking about when it comes to culture creation and exactly what we're talking about and how societies are manipulated. And when you listen to him talk, as he's talking, just picture in your mind's eye what you see going on right now. And you're going to be like, oh my God, that's exactly what's going on. We're being manipulated. I mean, our thoughts, our actions. How many people out there, you go, I'm sure you shop, you're forced to shop at some big name stores once in a while, like the rest of us are, because unfortunately that's what's out there in most areas. But how many of you, when you go to the store, unless you consciously make the decision not to buy extra stuff, purchase only what's on your shopping list, how many of you, if you go in, I have a mental checklist. How many of you will go in and buy $50, $60 worth of extra crap? A lot of you, 50, 60% of you probably will. You know what I mean? And that's done because, again, that's a level of control. Those stores are laid out. I mean, even the shopping culture, the culture of going to the mall and everything, it's all false. It's all an illusion. It's all fake. You know why they invented the whole mall walking thing? You know why that where that came from? Well, old people needed exercise. No. Do you know where that came from? That came from an ingenious marketing ploy. Okay? Why wouldn't you invite old people into your mall to walk? You need exercise? Come to our mall early in the morning and walk. Most old people have credit cards and money stashed away, don't they? And they have grandkids. And what's usually at the mall? Young kids. And what are most of the stores aimed at in the mall? Teenagers and kids and young adults. And what do old people again have? Grandkids and children. And usually not now, nobody's got any money anymore, but back in the day, they had money stashed away in savings accounts or credit cards, right? Or cash. You think that was an accident that malls would invite old people to walk around? Do your mall walking at 8 o'clock in the morning, old people. Duh. All this stuff is done to create this culture, whether it's, control of, society, for political reasons, economic reasons, sucking you dry of every last cent they can get out of you. The store, you know that, right, Brandon, that the stores are laid out specifically, like lighters and all this frou-frou garbage, like baseball cards and gum and all that little mini crap that people, it's so cute, it's mini, right? All that you know where all that is? At the registers. It's impulse buys and stuff. The way you notice, like the milk, the eggs, and all that stuff in a supermarket are always in the back of the store, in the far end of the store. Why is that? Why wouldn't they have that stuff right up front when people walk in? Because they want you to walk through the rest of the store first and buy useless crap. Again, just another level of mind control. Brandon, thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything in these stores. I haven't shopped at Walmart in 14 years. I haven't spent one penny there, but I have been inside. And everything about the stores are organized to either attract you to buy something, to trick you into seeing something, or to throw you off so you will be more susceptible to the propaganda, to the marketing, I wouldn't call it propaganda, but marketing in the store, whether it's changing which side that the entrance, you're supposed to walk in on the right, leave on the left, or whether it's changing that where you walk in on the left, leave on the right, so you're thrown off from the very beginning when you walk into the store, and you're more susceptible to the advertisements and the marketing ploys and the placement of everything in the store. It goes back, Edward Bernays, who hated the American public because he thought that they were absolutely stupid, and he hated them for it. But he even said, don't change your product to be what the public wants. Change the public to want your product. And that goes into the culture industry. When you talked about the horrible American movies going over to Europe, and only the European movies only being kind of a niche market here, there's a reason for that. It's because we're further along in terms of the propaganda and the culture industry. So we export the garbage over to Europe to corrupt what little is left of their culture. And back in the late 40s and early 50s, the Royal Institute of International Affairs had a meeting between some of the British entertainment moguls and the American moguls. And they determined that the Americans, the Hollywood, would lead the charge in world culture. And that's exactly what's happened. And that's why you're seeing that being exported now. And of course, the Royal Institute of International Affairs was the product of the Carnegie, not the Carnegie, but the Cecil Rhodes Foundations and his roundtables and so forth. And they formed the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which formed the Council on Foreign Relations here in the United States. Is where that comes from directly. And they're also connected. They are essentially British intelligence because that's the headquarters of the of basically British intelligence. The initial creation of it was at the same house, Chatham House, as Royal Institute of International Affairs, a very important organization. So this was all determined a long time ago to push this propaganda and world culture all across the world too. Again, not just Europe and not just America, but this is going all across the world.
Yeah, you even see people emulating it in countries where you wouldn't even expect it. That's people say it's the Americanization. It's not really the Americanization. I think that's the false term because you know how these people work. The powers that shouldn't be. Secret societies. They hide secret societies inside of other secret societies. Like the Masons, they hide the Illuminati actually inside the Freemasons, so the outer ones don't even realize what's going on. So people blame America or the Americans, and it's really not us or our way of doing things. It's we're being manipulated, and then the same manipulation that they're using on us is just being sold everywhere else, but it's being branded, quote-unquote Americanization or freedom or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's certainly not freedom. That's for damn sure. And they want brainless automatons. They're literally turning the world into idiocracy, or that's what they're attempting to do. The only way to stop it is to have conversations about this stuff and to point it out. If we don't, then people are going to, just by having this conversation, there's people that are going to walk away from this tonight, and the next time they hear one of these pop songs or something, this conversation is going to pop into the back of their head. And they're going to start to think, and they're going to start to analyze songs about some of the lyrics, and then they're going to go back and listen to older songs, right? Many of my listeners are already smart enough and awake that they don't listen to this crap, and they listen to the older stuff. So it's just important to have these conversations because it makes people think. Anyway, the break is sneaking up on us. Ladies and gentlemen, do not go anywhere. Culture creation is a real thing. Again, check out Alan Watt. Trying to get him on the show, working on scheduling. Interesting guy, you'll see. Go check him out. We'll be right back. Culture creation, look it up. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. So, final segment here. Final 26 minutes with my guest. And again, ladies and gentlemen, go check out all of Brandon's stuff over on activistpost.com. Brandon, plug your books. Everything's on your website, right? Wouldn't it just be easier? I know you yes, go to activistpost.com, but your books, everything else, videos and stuff, all that stuff's up on your website itself, right?
Yeah, everything's updated, immediately on BrandonTurbeville.com. The articles, interviews, books, YouTube versions of the show, and all that kind of stuff. All of it goes on BrandonTurbeville.com as soon as I get it done. So I would just recommend that people go there and check everything out there.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So during the break, we were chatting, and I had mentioned the Illuminati the last segment, and you wanted to actually you wanted to get into that, and I was I'm glad you brought up this point because this is an important point. A lot of people, when they hear the term Illuminati, and I've done shows on it to break it down before, but a lot of people, when they hear the term Illuminati now, it's almost like a pop culture reference, this term. It means, illuminated ones, okay? People don't even know what the word means. But it's referencing the powers that shouldn't be. But not everything is the Illuminati. It's just become this pop culture reference almost where, something bad happens to somebody and it's, did the Illuminati do it to him? And the people that are making these comments are making it, a lot of it is out of a place of ignorance because they don't even understand who the Illuminati are. That's why when someone says to them, they'll say the Illuminati did it, and someone will say, well, okay, what do you mean the Illuminati did it? Who are the Illuminati? People go, I don't know. I don't know really anything about them other than, well, they're the Illuminati. They're the bad guys. They're the people that pull off all this stuff. Yeah, but who are they? Which is a valid question, and people can't answer beyond that. It's this very vapid, shallow definition. They don't even really know the definition. It's just more like become a pop culture reference when you hear the word. That's why I use the term the powers that shouldn't be. I try to, I try to use something that references, them without saying them or the Illuminati constantly, because it's just become too much of a pop culture reference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and they do that with everything. I mean, whether it's, for instance, after 9/11, when many people were questioning the official story then, that we had people saying that the planes didn't hit the buildings, it was holograms, it was aliens or something like that. And so anytime you questioned 9/11, you got met with I still get met with the response, what, so you're saying the planes didn't hit the building? Well, no, I never said that at all. It's become a meme. And you see this with other buzz terms too, whether it's New World Order or something like that. And when you get that with the Illuminati, if you mention something about the culture industry, for instance, immediately you'll get the response, oh, you mean the Illuminati, right? Well, again, as you said, people don't even understand what that means. You're right, it does mean illuminated ones. And we know about, a branch of the Illuminati, which is the Bavarian Illuminati, which was revealed back in the 1700s in Europe, in Bavaria. And they take this story and they apply this to everything. They don't understand that the Illuminati, meaning illuminated ones, is only one branch of Freemasonry, essentially. And Freemasonry itself is only one branch of an even bigger religion that's global, and that's a big part of the elite. And so you'll get questions like, Jay-Z, is he a member of the Illuminati? No, I can safely say that he's not. He cashes in on it, of course, and probably has shaken hands with people who are members of the upper levels of Freemasonry and so forth, the people who may be so-called illuminated. But just because somebody gets caught in an awkward photograph with their hands in a certain position does not mean that they're part of the Illuminati. And this just goes to show that all it takes is a clever marketing scheme, and they can take something and spin it off into outer space to where nobody really knows what they're talking about, and nobody really takes it seriously. And of course, you've also got a subset of people who look at the Illuminati and actually take that the opposite way and want to be a part of it, and want to buy Illuminati shirts and so forth, to get Illuminati tattoos or so forth. So this is this is again sort of the culture industry piggybacking on very limited amounts of research. I think sometimes people who only skim information online and don't really go deep into the research not only do themselves a disservice, but they can also be more harm than good to other people who are trying to research, because this kind of stuff is really infantile when you look at it.
No, you're right, and that's a lot that's done on purpose too. The disinformation that's put out there, or the lack of information that people have, because they only dig so deep. And again, the people that the powers that shouldn't be, the people that do this stuff, the people that at the very top think of things, and they sit and they think about how to steer society and things like that. They understand this stuff. They've studied this stuff for years. They understand how we operate. And a lot of this is put out there. The Illuminati is real, yes. The Bavarian Illuminati was one sect of it, and just because they were broken up in the 1700s, they went underground. One of the things they did, again, they hid inside it, like Freemasonry. Not all Freemasons are bad, because they hid a secret society inside of Freemasonry. What better place to hide a secret society but inside of another secret society? I've had Christopher Everard to talk about this. He's been on multiple times. Go listen to the archives on Federal Jack. I've gone over this in detail. They're hid inside of it. So not all Freemasons are bad, right? But that's the way it is. I mean, even Albert Pike wrote about it, how they have the blue degrees of Masonry, and that the blue degrees have no clue about what's really going on, and that's the whole point. They hide inside of this because it's already secretive, so what better place to hide your secret deeds but inside of a secret order? And it's already a group, one secret order hiding itself inside of another one. It's almost like those Russian egg dolls. You keep opening them, and there's another one inside. And that's the way these groups work. And then you keep narrowing it down to the people at the very tippy top. And I think that the overuse of the term Illuminati is often put out there by these very people to muddy the waters and to manipulate it. So it becomes a pop culture reference. That's why you see the logos. I mean, part of it all is also a little bit of hubris that they throw their logos on clothes and stuff. But a lot of it is to make it a pop culture reference, so that way if you make it almost like pop culture-y, it becomes a fad and then it goes away like other fads, and it becomes a whatever. That's old school. Really, you're going to talk about the Illuminati? Really? Do I think Jay-Z's part of the hierarchy? No. Do I think he's a lapdog? Sure, of course. That's why he loves to throw his little symbols up. Do I think that he plays off of some of the attention that he gets from it, and that he figured out a way to make more money from it? Yeah, I do. I also think that he believes in some of the stuff that he does. Like, if he wears an upside-down cross on his T-shirt, yeah, maybe he does really believe in that. Maybe his real views, maybe he does know what's going on. Maybe he is part of this overall, he is part of the overall agenda with the crap that his culture creation garbage. But do I think that David Rockefeller or his ilk go to him and they're like, yo, man, tell us how to run the world, dog? No, I do not. I highly doubt it. I think it's the other way around. I think he's the puppet, if anything. Okay? And he's just a little finger puppet. That's all he is. As are the rest of them. And that's why they don't mind, they being the powers that shouldn't be, the real illuminated ones, right? They don't mind having Jay-Z getting all the spotlight as, oh my God, he's in it. I'm sure maybe he is a Satanist. Maybe. And could Beyonce get possessed? Oh, I'm sure. Sure. Well, I don't doubt it. Why would I? Look at her. When she turns into Sasha Fierce, she even says she has an alter ego. To me, that's more like mind control. That's more like compartmentalization and multiple personalities. But again, is that a possibility? Yes. Could Jay-Z be a handler? Yes. When you research a lot of MK Ultra stuff, you see a lot of these people in the entertainment industry are like that. Is that a possibility? Yes. That he knows stuff? Of course. But do I think he's like I said, do I think he's hobnobbing at Bilderberg? No. Not unless he's doing the entertainment. I don't think he's going to Bilderberg. I don't think he's that high. You know what I mean? And I think they've taken a lot of these references. They've had to. And that's largely in part due to us. because of people, exposing them, and what they're doing, the powers that shouldn't be, now they're going to try to turn it, at least this is what I see, they're going to try to turn it into like a pop culture reference, so that way it can become a fad, and then that it can be labeled as that, and that's it, at least for the younger generations. Not for the older generations. Remember, the older generations still think conspiracy theorists, blah, 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 but for the younger ones that are looking into it, they need to create this new meme for the Illuminati. For the older generations, it's, they still try to push you're a conspiracy theorist. Or I like when they say the New World Order, the New World Order, there's a group called the New World Order that conspiracy theorists think are trying to run. No, there's no group. That's the other thing. A lot of people do, even though the mainstream media misrepresents that, there are people that think or will say, well, the New World Order did it. No. The New World Order didn't do anything. There is no group called the New World Order. Okay, the only group that really called themselves the New World Order was the wrestling group, NWO. What was it? Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage, back when it was still WWF. Okay, that was the only NWO, group. The New World Order is an agenda. A new order of the ages, Novus Ordo Seclorum. It's on the back of your dollar bill. Okay, the new order of the ages, their work of ages, the New World Order. So the New World Order is not a group, but an agenda, an idea, which is what they're pushing now. The New American Century. You heard Joe Biden just say, we need a New World Order. Or you're going to be, what did he say to the cadets? You're going to push a New World Order. You're going to help bring in a New World Order, whatever the hell it was. He just said it at the Air Force graduation last week. I played the audio. So when you hear them say New World Order, it's not a group. It's not like Joe Biden, Obama, and 5 or 6 other people having scotch and cigars. The New World Order is their agenda. And that's why we say we're going to have a New World Order regardless, because people are going to become enlightened. We're going to come up to a newer level. It's up to us whether or not this is a dark New World Order like these people want, where it's total tyranny like it was hundreds of years ago, but with an evil technological twist, tyranny 2.0, okay? Or we have a light New World Order, an enlightened new way of looking at things. Maybe we don't call it a New World Order. Maybe we call it the new way of looking at things, or an enlightened way of looking at things. Not meaning, well, we all worship weird, demons or aliens or reptoids or whatever, and, sacrifice people and, try to swallow their soul. I'm not talking about that. That's the dark stuff. I'm talking about where we all stop killing each other. Maybe we all look at each other as human beings, and then we can get together and explore the oceans, because we haven't explored but a smidgen of them. Maybe explore the rest of the planet, because we think we know so much about this little blue marble that we live on, yet we know so little. And then perhaps maybe explore outer space and answer the question, are we alone? Which I doubt we are. I just think that anything out in outer space wouldn't want to come within 1,000 miles of Earth, because we can't even get along with each other, let alone somebody from another planet. And if you've ever seen any of our sci-fi movies, we have a opinion of outsiders, as it were, that is pretty negative. I'm not saying that aliens would come here with, roses and flowers, by the way. I'm just saying. Anyway, what do you think about the enlightenment of humanity, Brandon? You think that you agree with what I said? We have this choice, like Bill Cooper used to say. We have a fork in the road: total tyranny or enlightenment. What are you going to choose?
Yeah, I do, and I think that is the choice. I don't really think there's an in between, and I don't really want an in between. I want freedom, and I want a better society. And I think you can look around and you can tell that there are more people. Sort of, I guess, use the term waking up. Of course, that's becoming kind of trendy too. But there are more people who are becoming aware of what really is guiding their society, even if they don't know it intellectually and academically. They have this innate feeling that something is not quite right, and there seems to be more and more of these people, and that is a good sign. Of course, there are other people who seem to be hardening themselves, and that's the choice that they'll have to make. But when you talk about occult knowledge, for instance, if you say that you're interested in the occult, then a lot of religious people will immediately start shaking and quivering and thinking that you're a Satanist. But occult only means hidden. And if something's hidden from you, it's hidden from you for a reason. And so I encourage and really encourage people to go out and research this hidden knowledge and understand what it is, what it means, and then work toward it on an individual and a collective level to enlighten ourselves, to enlighten others, because we can do those things that you mentioned. We can explore the Earth. We can explore space. That is very possible. The technology that we know exists right now, that even you and I know exist, is probably 60 to 100 years behind the actual developments that they've already had. This is obsolete, the stuff that we know about. We can do incredible things with the technology that exists now. Free energy, space exploration, environmentally friendly industry, and so forth. All of this stuff is at the tip of our fingertips, but it's being held back from us by a group of people, a dominant minority, who want to maintain control of the planet and keep it for themselves. And that cannot be allowed to continue. So it's possible, and we have to it's possible to have an awakening, an enlightenment, and we just have to keep working for it.
And again, that's why, people like you, myself, and others do this stuff. Because these conversations, the podcasts, the articles, the books, everything, this stuff, these conversations on multiple levels need to be had. And it's important to dive into the deep end. A lot of people don't like to talk about this stuff. This is why I'm glad, you were willing to talk about this, because some people, even though it's solutions, a lot of people, this is just too deep for them. Sometimes it's emotional for them. I mean, I've done broadcasts on this, and at the end of the broadcast, I've had people message me, or if they heard a rebroad, I've gotten emails, and people tell me, man, you made me cry. And that's, the point of doing this is to get you to feel what I'm trying. Like, if I'm saying something and you feel it, it's not because I'm trying to manipulate you with I'm speaking to you from the heart. I don't have any special sound effects or anything like that. So if you feel it, that's a genuine emotion. That's me, genuinely touching you with something and reaching you. If you feel something when you listen to what Brandon says, it's the same thing, or anybody else. Or if you read something that somebody writes, and that sparks a genuine emotion in you, and you feel, say you read something and, you're like, wow, that's right. That's the point of doing this, because by doing that, you might have a conversation with your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever, friends, coworkers, family. And that conversation will have a domino effect, and maybe you'll change the way they look at something. I know a lot of people that, one of the guys on this network, one of the other hosts, a friend of mine, Joe, he talks a lot about this stuff at his day job, and he's been able to, probably within the past 6 months to a year, make a lot of headway where a lot of his, coworkers now actually listen to the network, and not only his show, but my show and others, because they've been tuned into this, and now they're like, holy crap, they've woken up. Some way, somehow, this affects everybody, by the way, but some way, somehow, everybody has a doorway. When people say, well, how do I wake people up? And like you said, it is, the awakening is even becoming, the term awake or waking up is almost becoming trendy. It's just unplugging. It's just not believing it anymore. It's seeing. If you want an untrendy version of it, it's really simple. It's just, that's why I always tell people, put on the Hoffman sunglasses from They Live. That's what it is. And once you put them on, you can't unsee it. It's not like in the movie where you can take them off and you can't see things. Once you put them on, it's like, Neo in the end of the Matrix. You can see the code. You can see everything. That's why he was able to be faster than the agents, because he could see them. He could see what they were. He realized they were nothing but computer programs, and he was better than they were. He was the one with the power, not them. And it was his, he could defeat them very easily. He could see the truth. Once you put those glasses on and you see the code, you see the world for as it is, you can't take it off. And in just your actions alone from there, even having a simple conversation with someone affects things. People are like, oh, I have no power. Stop thinking that. Everybody needs to believe in themselves. Truly, it's the only way we're going to get through this. Brandon, we got about 5 minutes left. Your final thoughts. What do you think? We have to believe in ourselves. Same thing.
Yeah, I got a couple things. People might be surprised what they can accomplish when they stop being so afraid, whether it's speaking out or actually taking action. There's a Nick Cave song. I just talked about the culture industry, but there's a Nick Cave song where he talks about leaping into the abyss and finding out it only goes up to your knees. And I think that's a pretty good metaphor. I've met people who know about much of the stuff that we've talked about tonight, whether it's the Freemasonry connections, the culture industry, the political situation, and they're stockpiling food and they're stockpiling guns, and all that stuff is important. But these same people are terrified to speak to their friends about this information. They won't do it. And my advice to them is to save your money on the guns and food, especially the guns, because if you don't have the courage to speak out to your friends and tell them this information and just take a little ridicule occasionally, the risk of ridicule, not even ridicule, but the risk of it, then I don't think you're going to have the courage to use the guns. So just save your money and enjoy yourself. But when you talk about this being on multiple levels, I think that's very important too, because we are being hit on multiple levels, on a physical level, on a mental level, and on a spiritual level. And we have to fight back on multiple levels. So that means understanding, who we are and exploring our own consciousness and acting in a spiritual manner, but also acting on the ground, being involved at the grassroots, right? That means organizing people politically for sort of the 5 cents reality that we have to live in every day, this experience, and also on the spiritual level. Why would we neglect any of these levels? We're getting hit on all these different levels, and we have to fight back on all these different levels. I think when people understand that and stop looking at, say, a political protest as being the be-all, end-all of resistance, or simply sitting cross-legged and meditating as the be-all, end-all, and maybe a little bit of both, then I think that we stand a chance. Because we don't need everybody to do this. We only need a few. But, we got to be wise about it, and we got to use every element that's at our disposal. And, why wouldn't you want to do both of those things and fight back on all of these different levels?
We have to. I mean, it is, people that don't understand this stuff or are afraid to talk about it or don't believe in religion. See, that's how they keep us divided, and they understand that you have to understand the full context of everything in order to be able to put up a real fight, and they understand that. So what they do, they being the powers that shouldn't be, they get us to think like they do, and we look at each other for every different reason we possibly can, and don't realize that it's really us versus them. And we attack each other. And because of those divisions, the non-religious beliefs, whatever, or religious beliefs, like you said, people are afraid to look into the occult because they hear the word the occult, and oh my God, occult, witches and witchcraft. No, it just means hidden information. That's all it means. And information really is just information. It doesn't matter if it's a spell or whatever else or an incantation or any of this stuff. Information just is information. It's what you do with it. So if I take that information and start reading it aloud or doing something to bring about something bad, or if I take some knowledge that maybe I have and I use that knowledge to benefit in a bad way or kill people or do something evil, then yeah, that's bad. It's just like a hammer. I could build a house or I could bash someone's skull in with it. It's really not the hammer that's evil, right? It's what I do with the hammer. So it's the same thing with information. People want to attack guns for killing people. It's not the gun, it's the person. It's the same thing. Information just is. So that's another way that they stop people from looking into this. They get them to be afraid, whether they're atheists or they're super religious. Maybe I don't believe in any of the hocus pocus, or I can't look into that because, God will, punish me or smite me. You can't. You got to put all that stuff to the side. Again, you don't have to believe in it personally. You have to understand that this is what these people believe so that we're all on an even playing field. Brandon, we are out of time thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Popeye. I've enjoyed it.
Just awesome broadcast. I'm going to have to get you back on in the next few weeks. Get really quick. We got about 30 seconds. Plug all your websites and stuff really quick where people can follow you.
Yeah, I'd recommend to go to BrandonTurbeville.com and check out all of the articles I've got there and all the interviews and archive versions of my show that I post there, the books tab for the bookstore and so forth. Also, my radio show, Truth on the Tracks, at ucy.tv and activistpost.com, theantimedia.org. Just remember, BrandonTurbeville.com is where I repost all of my work, and also remind the audience to go check out Alan Watt as well.
I agree. Check out Alan Watt. Plus, like I said, check out all of Brandon's stuff. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on the broadcast tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. I will see you all again live tomorrow night. As I always tell you, truly, I believe this. The solutions to our problems are an inside job. Go out and be the superhero that I know all of you have inside of yourselves. Stop looking to everybody else. Be your own superhero. I love you all, and I'll catch you all again live tomorrow night.